Okay, so welcome to everyone. Today I'm going to deliver the session on thermodynamics for the GATE preparation. And see, this is the second session on thermodynamics. In the first session, I have discussed regarding the first law of thermodynamics and basic concepts. Now, today we have to go for the second law of thermodynamics and availability concept, and then as well as for we will see the properties of the pure substances. Okay, so see, for last lecture, we have discussed this syllabus and all these things. But one thing I forget to mention, that is what the name of the books. See, when you are preparing for the GATE examinations, I will recommend the at least for thermal subjects, you can go for the thermodynamics. There are two major books that you should refer. That is P.K. Nag and Eunice Engels, and in these two books you will get the your concepts clear, and you will have the better understanding of the thermodynamics. So for thermodynamics you should refer this. For IC engines, Mathur and Sharma, V Ganeshans, these are the books. Then for all other thermal subjects, you can have the different books, but from my point of view I have uh, highlighted some big few books here, so you can refer these for GATE examination. See, one thing that you should remember regarding the books or whatever the study material is there. Now, that study material may not be suitable for everyone. Any any material which is available may not be suitable for everyone. See, that will be your frequency, that which book you will like, and which will be suitable for you. So you have to test all the books at least once, and then you have to decide that which book you think that you are suitable for understanding purposes and as well as for difficulty level and all these things. Okay, so this is all about the books that I have not mentioned for last lecture, so that's why I have mentioned here. Now, see, for last lectures, we have discussed regarding the first law, which is applicable for the closed system and open system. So, both conditions we have seen, closed system and open system. Now, these laws are having some limitations, and that limitations are there, that it is limited for certain statements, means energy conservation, it is mentioned, but which type of energy conversion is there, that is not mentioned in case of first law of thermodynamics. Means, for example, we can't convert the heat into W 100%, so that is not mentioned in the first law. So that is the limitation first. Then we are having the another limitation, that the quality of the energy is not mentioned. Means, everyone is knowing that suppose we are having the heat available at the 10 degrees centigrade and same amount of the heat is available at the 1000 degrees centigrade, then which is better, or both are having the same value or equal value, that is not actually got from the first law. First law is saying that quantity is there, and as the quantity wise, we can consider that 1 kilojoule energy at 100 degrees centigrade or 1000 degrees centigrade will be same. But what about the quality? So that is not mentioned in the first law. And then we are knowing that it is not also mentioning the direction of the energy flow. Means, suppose we are having the heat transfer from high temperature to low temperature, but low temperature to high temperature is not possible. So this is not mentioned by the first law. And then last one is there, that is processes are possible or not, it is also not mentioned. Means, suppose we are having the fan is rotating, and that fan, we can say that due to that fan air is rotating. So can we have the reverse process of this? Is it possible or not? So that it is not mentioned by the first law of thermodynamics. Now, to give these all answers, we required some more laws, and out of these questions, the second law is giving you some answers of these questions. So, how it is going to give you some answers, that we have to see today by studying the second law of thermodynamics. Okay, so let us discuss now that second law of thermodynamics. So see, for second law of thermodynamics, you should understand the concept of heat engine and heat pump. That is very important. Heat engine and heat pump. So what is that heat engine? Heat engine, you are knowing that is a device which converts the heat into work. So if you supply the heat and you are getting the work, then that device is called as a heat engine. So examples in actual conditions, we are having n number of examples, that is IC engines, steam power plant, gas turbine power plants, nuclear power plants, and so on. So these are called as a heat engine. See, in steam power plant, boiler is not called as a heat engine, but complete steam power plant is called as a heat engine. So that you should understood. And I think you are knowing it. Okay, so see, I'm somewhat fast because the syllabus is huge, and these are primary concept. Just I want to recall it. So if you are not having some doubts in these concepts, you can stop me and you can ask me the questions at that time moment only. Okay, then next is there that suppose we are considering the steam power plant, and that steam power plant we are having we can say that different components, and we are supplying the heat and we are getting the work. So you should understand that there is the main component boiler in which you will supply the heat. In turbine you will get the work out, and in condenser you are rejecting the heat. Then you are supplying the work somehow to work in the pump, so that the water will be pumped in the back to the boiler. So this type of the four components are there, and we can call it as a heat engine. So if you consider different processes, then that process is also you are knowing. But just right now we are going to have the steam power plant as a heat engine. The discussion is restricted to that only. So if you draw the diagram or line diagram for that, then you will get the heat engine is like this. That is, it is taking the heat from high temperature reservoir and rejecting the heat to the low temperature heat reservoir and generating the turbine work. So it is producing the turbine work. So you will get the turbine work as a output from here. So this is what the heat engine is called as. Now suppose this heat engine, we can say that there are two types of the reservoirs. One is sinks and another is source. So high temperature from where you will get the heat, that reservoir is called as a source, while where you are rejecting the heat which is at low temperature, that is called as a sink. Okay, and you are getting the network, that is Wt minus Wp. So this is what one of the heat engine you will have. Now based on this, we have to measure the performance. So performance is measured in terms of the efficiency. So see, in this case, the efficiency you can define in terms of desired effect upon supplied input, that we are calling it is in this case is output upon input. But see, if you want the universal definition of this performance, means that performance definition you can apply for refrigerator or heat pump also. So you can remember it another way, that is what you want upon what you supply. Means from this device what you want, that is one thing. And for getting that, we can say that what we are going to supply from our pocket. So for example, in this case, the heat engine is there. So heat engine, what we want from the heat engine, that why we are purchasing the heat engine. The heat engine you are purchasing for getting the work out from there. So work out you will get, but for that getting the work, you have to supply the heat. Okay, you have to supply the heat. So Q1 is supplied by you, while W net you are going to get. So efficiency we can say that W net upon Q1. So this is what the formula that you can write. Now when you apply the first law of thermodynamics, then in this case the W net is nothing but Q1 minus Q2. W net is nothing but Q1 minus Q2, and divided by Q1, that is what we are supplying, is called as a efficiency. So this is what the efficiency is formula for a heat engine. Now this you can write also like this, that is 1 minus Q2 upon Q1. See, this is the formula that may required for solving the problems, and you should remember it. Okay, then the next concept is regarding the refrigerator and heat pump. So refrigerators are used for cooling the space, and it will take the heat from the space. Means, for example, if you want to have the air conditioner, then all of you are knowing that the air conditioners are taking the heat from a room. Okay, so it is taking the heat from the room, and that is cooling the space. Okay, and uh, means what is that? That is used for the cooling purpose. While heat pumps are doing the same concept, that is, it is taking the heat from the lower temperature, but the purpose of that is different. That is what? Heating the space. So refrigerators are purchased, or we can say that air conditioning conditioners we are purchasing because I we want to cool the rooms or cool the space. But while heat pumps are purchased for heating purposes, if I want to heat that room, then it is heat pumps are used, and that is heated by adding the heat in it. So this is what the heat pumps. Okay, so refrigerator and heat pumps definition, you can hide that device which transfers the heat from lower temperature to higher temperature with the help of external mechanical work is called as a refrigerator. So when you are transferring the heat from low temperature to high temperature, then that is called as a refrigerator or heat pump. See, in both cases, the working principle is same, only application is different. Once again, I am telling, refrigeration and heat pumps are working on the same principle. Components are same, only the applications are different. So there are four components, just like in steam power plant, we are having the four components. One is compressor, condenser, expansion valve, and evaporator. So evaporator is used for cooling the room, and condenser is used for giving that heat to the atmosphere in case of refrigerator. While in case of heat pump, this condenser is used for heating the room, while this evaporator is used for taking the heat from the atmosphere. And in this case, you are transferring the heat from lower temperature to higher temperature with the help of these different four components. So this is what the refrigerator heat pump concept. Now see, when you draw the diagrams for this, then you will find that both are same. See, in this case also you will have the T1 temperature, higher temperatures, T2 temperatures, lower temperatures. We are supplying the W in compressor. So in both cases compressor is there, and we are supplying the work for that. The condenser will reject the heat at higher temperature, evaporator will take the heat from lower temperature. Same thing is happening in both cases. Then what is the difference? The difference is that the where the condenser and evaporators are placed. So if you place the evaporator in the room, then that will cool the room, because evaporator is at the lower temperature, so it will cool the room. So that's why that is nothing but refrigerator. And you will reject the heat to the atmosphere. So condenser is placed in the atmosphere. So that is called as a refrigerator. But in case of heat pump, the condenser is placed in the room where it is rejecting the heat, while the atmosphere from atmosphere evaporator will take the heat. So that is nothing but the heat pump. So this is what the difference between the refrigerator and heat pump. Now the main issue is there, and that is very important for our point of view, get point of view. That is what the formulas of this performance, okay, of the these two equipments. So as our definition, that we have defined what you want, what you supply. So in case of both cases, the performance is measured in the terms of COP, that is coefficient of performance. So we can say that it is nothing but the desired effect upon supplied input. Now, in case of refrigerator, what you want? I want to cool the room. Okay, so in case of refrigerator, I want to cool the room. While in case of heat pump, I want to heat the room. So here the purpose is cooling the room. Here the purpose is heating the room. So that's why the COP will change. So COP of refrigerator is the amount of the heat removed, that is for required for cooling, divided by what you supply. I am supplying the W, that is for compressor. Electricity is supplied, so that is Q2 upon W. While in case of heat pump, I am getting the Q1 to the room because I want to heat the room. So that's why I am getting the Q1 And what you are supplying? You are supplying the W, that is for the compressor. So Q1 upon W is the heat pump, COP of the heat pump. So this is what the definition, or we can say that formula is for the COP of refrigerator and heat pump. So don't confuse in that, and remember these formulas because it may be asked sometimes. Okay, so formulas will not ask, but you may use this in the problems, and at that time some confusion will be there, then that problem goes wrong. So these are the basic things that you should remember. See, thermodynamics is a basics thing and applications are the different. So the questions will be more on the application side, but if you are not knowing the basics, then it is difficult to go for the applications. So that's why we have to learn this. So direct questions may not be there from the thermodynamics, but the questions from applications will be there, which may be using the concept of thermodynamics, basic concepts of the thermodynamics. So if you write the COP of refrigerator and COP of the heat pump, then we can have one relation, that is heat pump COP will be greater than COP of refrigerator, and that is by 1. Okay, so you can say that the relation between these two is heat pump, COP of heat pump is equal to COP of refrigerator plus 1 when it is working between the same temperature ranges. Remember that. So the condition here is the T1 and T2 are same for both cases. So in that case, if you are having the heat pump and refrigerator, then the COP of heat pump will be more than COP of the refrigerator. So this is what the relation that you will have. So with this relation, we have to go for the second law of thermodynamics. So second law of thermodynamics, there are two statements. We are knowing it. The first statement is Kelvin-Planck statement, and you are knowing that the Kelvin-Planck statement is like this: that is, it is impossible for a heat engine to produce net work in a complete cycle if it exchanges heat only with the bodies at a single fixed temperature. So we can't produce the work by exchanging the heat only with the single temperature reservoir. So this is what the Kelvin-Planck statement says, and it is the meaning that the Q2 cannot be zero. So if you are having the heat engine, the Q2 cannot be zero, and if you are not saying that Q2 is not equal to 0, it means that Q1 is not equal to W net, or the heat, complete heat cannot be converted into the W net. So this is what the meaning of Kelvin-Planck statement, but it is mentioned in the somewhat different words, and those words are also important because we are going to use it for different concepts. So you can say that it is not possible for this engine to generate the W net if it is exchanging the heat only with the single reservoir. If it is not exchanging the heat only with the other reservoirs, then it cannot produce the work. So this is what the meaning of Kelvin-Planck statement. And we can say that in other words also, if you write the efficiencies formula, and if you write that Q2 is not equal to 0, it means that the efficiency should not be, we can say that equal to 100%, or it will be always less than 100%. So efficiency of a heat engine will be always less than 100%. This can be concluded from the Kelvin-Planck statement. Okay, so this is what the Kelvin-Planck statement says. Now you can say that the perpetual motion machine means, which is having the 100% efficiency, is called as a perpetual motion machine of second kind. Now you should remember that this type of machines are not possible at any cost. It is it is impossible. I'm not saying very difficult, but it is impossible to have this type of the machines. Okay, so this you should remember. Now, in the last lecture only, I have discussed that these laws are not, we can say that, put by any, we can say that, scientists directly, but those are the observations in the natures. So, you should remember that the observations in the natures are correct. Those are not going wrong at any cost. So, whatever the meanings of these laws are there, those are going to be fixed. So this is what the second law. Now we are having the another statement, that is Clausius statement. And Clausius statement says that we can't transfer the heat from lower temperature to higher temperature without any external aid or help, we can say. So for transferring the heat from lower temperature T2 to higher temperature T1, we need the work, and this is called as a Clausius statement. Now see, the Clausius statement and Kelvin-Planck statement both seems to be very different, but both are having the same, we can say that equivalence to each other. Means if you say that the first Kelvin-Planck statement is wrong, then you have to remember that the Clausius statement is also should be wrong, because we have proved that equivalence for Clausius and Kelvin-Planck statement. So here you should accept both the statements simultaneously. Means you can't accept one statement and you can say that another is wrong. If you say the one is wrong, then another is also going wrong. And if you say that the both are correct, then it is okay. So the second statement, that is Clausius statement, heat cannot be transferred from lower temperature to higher temperature. That I think you will accept easily. Then the efficiency of heat engine is less than 100%. So you can accept one means you are going to accept the other also. This is the meaning of equivalence of both statements. Okay, so this is Clausius statement and Kelvin-Planck statement. Now, from these two statements, one conclusion is coming out, and that is what we can't get 100% efficient heat engine. Means what? The heat cannot be completely converted into the work. Okay, so this is what the second law says. Now it is not completely converted, but then how much we can convert, so that we have to uh, find out, or that we have to study. If it is not possible that 100% efficiency or 100% efficient engine, then maximum how much efficient engine we can get, so that we have to study, and that is given by the entropy concept. Okay, so that is given by the entropy concept. So let us discuss that now. So see, there are two types of the processes. We are saying that reversible and irreversible. So you are knowing that the reversible processes means which we can change its direction at any time, and it will not leave any type of trace or relic behind after it is happening. So that type of processes are called as a reversible processes. So if it happens in nature, then it can reverse its direction at any point, and again, if it is completed in the reverse manner also, then there is no any trace relic is happening. So it is completely reverse or rewind, we can say. Now, but in actual conditions, this type of processes are very difficult. So though these processes are having some important importance, and we are going to say that these are the most efficient processes, reversible processes. Why we are studying? Because those are the most important efficient processes, and we are going to prove it. But still it is very difficult to achieve. Okay, so that you should not forget. So then why we are not having all reversible processes, but there are certain reasons, or we can say that causes, due to which we it is very difficult to achieve it. And the first difficulty is the causes of irreversibility. Then that the lack of equilibrium is the first difficulty. So see, when you want to have some type of processes, particularly heat transfer or work transfer or any type of process should happen, then there is always inequilibrium. Means there is a lack of equilibrium. Means, for example, the heat will be transferred from high temperature to low temperature. Means in this case, if the heat transfer is possible, then that will transfer from A to B, because A is having the higher temperature and B is having the lower temperature. But the reverse of that is not possible. Reverse of that is not possible. Why? It is not having any equilibrium condition. So instead of having, if you are having equilibrium conditions like this, that in that case it may possible that you can have the reversible processes. But what is the difficulty in this case? The major difficulty in this case is that it will take a lot of time for that process. Means if you want to transfer the heat with very small or minute temperature difference, then in that case the time taken by that process will be very very huge, and we can't have a device which will take that much time. Means, for example, in case of boiler, if you transfer the heat and it will take lot of time to transfer small amount of the heat, then that boiler is not of any use, or we can say that that type of things are not feasible in actual conditions. So that's why it becomes difficult. So I'm saying that it is very difficult. Okay, but it is possible. See, you can't say that it is not possible. It is possible, but it is very difficult that transferring the heat uh, with the very very small temperature difference or equilibrium conditions. So this is what the first limitation you can have. Then second limitation, same thing, that is what the pressure equilibrium. If you want to have the compression expansion processes like in IC engines, then if you have the pressure rise at a very huge level, then that transfer will be taking place within short time. But if you apply very small pressure, that is just like in this case, if you apply 0.00001 kg, then it will take lot of time. So pressure equilibrium, if it is there, then the process will be happen easily. And but if you but that is a irreversible process. But if you want the reversible process, then you have to keep that equilibrium conditions which will require very small change. Then that is not possible or feasible conditions. Means, for one cycle of IC engines it may require the lot of times. So that's why we can say that it is difficult time. Now, free expansions. So you are knowing that if you keep one side vacuum and another side any type of gas, and if you remove the partition in between that, then gas will move in the other compartment where vacuum is there. But reverse of this is not possible. So this is what the free expansion. Then concentration equilibrium, means suppose two gases are there, and if you remove the partition and mix them, then it is very difficult to separate out it without any external aid. So this is not actually feasible. So here the equilibrium conditions of concentration is not there, so that's why it is very difficult. So this is what the first cause, lack of equilibrium. Then second cause is dissipative effect. So dissipative effect, in that the friction is first one, and second is electric resistance. Friction is the first one, and second is the electric resistance. So these are the dissipative effects. Due to the friction, the heat is generated. But if you want back, that heat should be converted into the work, or we can say that that friction energy which we are lost, then it is not possible. So dissipative effects are the major drawbacks due to which the reversible processes are not possible. Now, in actual conditions, to remove these dissipative effects is very difficult. You may require the sophisticated, we can say that devices where the friction is very, very minute or it is zero, as well as if you want the superconductors of the electricity, then it will require the huge cost. So bringing it in the actual practices may be possible, but it is difficult. Okay, so that you should remember difference. So dissipative effect is another cause of having the irreversible processes. Then in that case, the paddle work, or you can consider anything. So see, this is the causes of reversible and irreversible processes. Now, why we are interested in the reversible and irreversible processes, that we have to going to discuss. So we are interested in the reversible processes because those reversible processes are giving the maximum efficiency as per the second law of thermodynamics. Second law of thermodynamics is saying that it is not possible us to get the 100% efficient engine, but how much maximum, or what is the maximum value that we can get, that is given by the second law. And how much it is generated by the reversible cycle. So if you are having all reversible processes in a cycle, then that cycle will give you the maximum efficiency, and that we can prove. So for that purpose, you should understand the reversible Carnot cycle, in which we will have the four processes. Out of that, two are isothermal and two are adiabatic processes. There are four processes. Two are isothermal, two are adiabatic processes. So just if we consider that Carnot cycle for the we can say that the heat engine, then there are four processes, that is two of heat addition which are taking place at the isothermal conditions, and one is there that is by adiabatic processes. So expansion and compression, these are the two processes that will be taking place. So this is what regarding the reversible Carnot cycle. Now so if you want to draw the PV diagram and TS diagram for that, then you can see that these are the two diagrams. So see, you should remember these diagrams, how you can plot the PV and TS diagram for the Carnot cycle. So there are two isothermal, two reversible adiabatic. So if you draw this on the TS diagram, it will be a rectangle. Okay, it will be a rectangle. That is, we are going to see it right now or today's lecture. But right now, you can remember that it will be a rectangle on the TS diagram. So see, this is what the Carnot cycle. But if you reverse the Carnot cycle, if you are having the opposite direction flow of the Carnot cycle, then it will be work just like a refrigerator and heat pump. So if you are having the forward Carnot cycle, it will be work as a heat engine. But if you reverse this direction of the Carnot cycle, then it will work as a refrigerator or heat pump. Otherwise, everything will be same in that case. So reverse Carnot cycle can work as a refrigerator or heat pump, that you should remember. So if you are having the processes, then the same processes are there. Only thing is that in the reverse manner. There are two adiabatic processes, there are two isothermal processes which are occurring in the reverse manner. So that you have to remember. Now see, based on these reversible processes, there is one Carnot theorem, and that Carnot theorem is important. What that Carnot theorem says? Carnot theorem says that if you are having the source, fixed source temperature and fixed sink temperature, means T1 and T2 are fixed, then if in that temperature ranges, the n number of we can say that the heat engines are working, then the out of that the reversible engine will gives you the maximum or highest efficiency. What is the meaning of that? The meaning of this theorem is that you will get the maximum efficiency if you are having the reversible engine. Reversible engine means in which the processes are occur in the reversible manner. So those, that is what the Carnot theorem says. And this Carnot theorem can be proved by using the second law of thermodynamics. So see, this Carnot theorem is not the one of the invention, but we can say that the Carnot theorem is based on the second law of thermodynamics. So Carnot theorem can be considered as an outcome of second law of thermodynamics. Second law of thermodynamics is saying that you cannot transfer the heat from lower to higher temperature without aid, or the you are not having the 100% efficient engine. So this is second law of thermodynamics. Based on that, the second statement is coming, that is Carnot theorem, and which is saying that the maximum efficiency you can get it in terms of if that engine is a reversible. So for reversible engine, you are having the maximum efficiency. 100% efficiency is not possible by human being, but maximum efficiency is possible by the reversible engine. So that may be lesser than 100%, but it is for the reversible engine only. So this is, you should remember, because we are going to use it. Now you can prove that. You can prove that. Uh, so there is a proof. There is proof. That proof may not be required for you people, but you should remember that the it will if it is not, then it will violate the Kelvin-Planck statement. And we have considered, or we have assumed now, that the second law is now confirmed because it is true. And if it is true, then you should consider that reversible engines are giving you the maximum efficiency. So this is what the Kelvin-Planck statement's violation if you are not considering it. Now this is the outcome, that efficiency of reversible engine will be greater than efficiency of any irreversible engine. or you can consider that efficiency of reversible engine is greater than or equal to efficiency of any other engine. So this is what the Carnot theorem. Now there is one Carnot corollary also, and Carnot corollary actually is similar to the heat engine, sorry, Carnot theorem. But only thing is that in this case, it is mentioned that if you are having n number of reversible engines working in the same range, म्हणजे Carnot theorem सांगतो की reversible engine will give the more efficiency than the irreversible engine. But if you are having the two reversible engines working between the same temperature ranges, means A is there and B is there, and both are reversible. And if it is working between the same temperature ranges T1 and T2, then in that case, both will have the same efficiency. So this is what the Carnot corollary. Corollary of the Carnot theorem is saying that if n number of reversible engines are working between the same temperature ranges, then all should have the same efficiency. So this is what the Carnot corollary. Okay. Now see, this is very important point that we are having based on this Carnot theorem and Carnot corollary. We can get one relation, that is the heat is proportional to the temperatures in absolute form. So if you want to get that Q1 will be proportional to the T1, which is mentioned in the Kelvin. Similarly, this heat transfer to the T2 is proportional to the T2 in mentioned in the Kelvin. So this is a very important point that you can get it here, but this is just for the reversible processes. Once again, you should remember that this will be possible if the reversible processes are there. And as we are discussing that reversible processes are giving the maximum efficiency, it means that these are the ideal processes. So for ideal processes, you can say that the heat is proportional to the absolute temperature. So here you are having the relation between Q and T for reversible or ideal conditions, that is Q2 upon Q1 is equal to T2 upon T1. Now based on that, the efficiencies formula you can get as efficiency of heat engine is equal to 1 minus T2 upon T1. Efficiency COP of refrigerator is T2 upon T1 minus T2, while if COP of heat pump is coming T1 upon T1 minus T2. So these formulas you should remember, you have to use it for the ideal conditions. So whenever in the problems it is mentioned that the cycle is working on the ideal conditions, ideal processes, or reversible processes, or Carnot cycle, then in that case the efficiencies formula or COP's formula you should take, you can take it in the terms of the temperature. You can take it in the temperatures. Otherwise, you have to consider it in terms of heat. So Q2 upon W, Q1 upon W, that will be the COPs if you are having any sort of heat engine, sorry, pump and refrigerator, any other pump or refrigerator. But when you are having the reversible engine, reversible processes, then you can use both formulas. You can use both formulas. So see, this you should remember. Now see, based on this, there may be one problem or there may be problems. So you should remember this. Once again, I am telling. Only one thing you should not forget, that the temperature in this case are in Kelvin, not degree centigrade. See, this is what the mistakes. Lot of people do these mistakes. Students make do this mistake, that they will take these temperatures in the degree centigrade. And if you take in the degree centigrade, then ratio will not be correct. So differences may come correct, but ratios will not correct. So you should keep these temperatures in Kelvin at any cost. Okay, temperature should be taken in the kelvins. So this is what for the reversible processes. Now let us go with this basic. So see, the first part is there, that is second law of thermodynamics, and second law of thermodynamics says that we can't have the 100% efficient engine. Then second part comes, in which you have studied the Carnot theorem. That Carnot theorem says that the reversible engine will give the maximum efficiency. Now, how much? See, it is fixed that we will get the maximum efficiency in this case, but how much? So that can be quantified by the next term that is called as the entropy. So how it is going to be quantified? Let us discuss it for the following lectures. So see, the entropy is a concept or it is a property. Actually, it is derived from the second law of thermodynamics. See, this statement I am putting it once again, that the zeroth law is giving one property that is called as temperature. First law is giving the property that is called as the internal energy, and the second law is giving you the property that is called as a entropy. So each law is giving you the one property, and that properties are defined based on those laws. So now how this entropy property is coming in picture, so that we have to see now. So for that purpose, we should have some background of that. So what is the background for that? Let us see. So see, the definition of the entropy is starting from the reversible adiabatic processes. So reversible adiabatic processes means what? There is no heat exchange and processes is reversible. That type of process is called as a reversible adiabatic. Reversible adiabatic means what? Heat transfer is not there and processes is reversible. So that processes are called as a reversible adiabatic process. So reversible adiabatic processes, if you observe, then it is found that those cannot intersect each other. Reversible adiabatic processes, if you observe, then you will find that those cannot be intersect each other. Means, and this is again proved by using the second law of thermodynamics. केल्विन प्लँक स्टेटमेंट यूज करूनच हे प्रूव्ह झालेलं आहे की सेकंड रिव्हर्सिबल adiabatic processes cannot be intersect each other. So you can see that proofs of this also, but you have to remember that two reversible adiabatic processes are not intersecting each other, and you are knowing that the property lines are not intersecting each other. Property lines are not intersecting each other. So this is what the second thing. Reversible adiabatic are not intersecting, and second thing is that the property lines are not intersecting. Okay, so there are two things. One is reversible adiabatic processes are not intersecting, while property lines are not intersecting. So what is the meaning of that? Now meaning of this is, you can say reversible adiabatic lines are representing some property which is not known to you, and that is nothing but the entropy. Okay, reversible adiabatic lines which are showing you some property which is not known to you, so that you should remember. So now this is one outcome that we have got. Now let us go to the next point, that is what the Clausius theorem. Now what is that Clausius theorem? So if you start or read that Clausius theorem, then you will get, see, one final statement I am going to tell you here, because the derivations are not important, but the final conclusion is important. So from this derivation or from this statement, you will find that you will find that you will find that the Clausius theorem, that is, it is telling that the cyclic integration of dq by t is equal to 0 when the cycle is reversible cycle. The cycle is reversible cycle, and if you want to have the integration of dq by t over reversible cycle, then it coming 0. So this is what the Clausius theorem is, and this you can see the derivation of that. So for our purposes, that is for the gate examination, derivations are not important, but if you want to understand how it is coming, then you can read it. Otherwise, you can remember the directly uh, this one. You can directly remember this one. That is what Clausius theorem is called as. Okay. Now, by using this Clausius theorem statement, that is what the mathematical statement we have got, we can go for the next concept. So cyclic integration of dq by t, if it is coming 0, means what? Means what? that, see, the cyclic integration of the properties are coming zero. Means, for example, suppose if I take the properties like temperature, pressure, or volume, and if I take the cyclic integration of these properties, then that will comes as a zero, because those are the point functions. Cyclic integration of any property is coming zero. Means, suppose I am starting from one point and I am coming back to the one point. So cycle is completed. So what is the temperature change during this cycle? So it is zero, because you are coming back to original position. So that's why the property change will be zero. Similarly, if you consider any other property, pressure. So if I'm starting from one point and I'm coming back to the original one point, then in that case, what is the pressure change? That will be same, because the state is same. So that's why cyclic integration of properties are zero. So that you have to remember. And in this case, we are getting that dq by t, the term dq by t, whose cyclic integration is coming zero. So what we can say? We can say that the quantity must indicate some property difference. Dq by t must indicate some property difference which is not known to us. So let us call that property as a entropy. So this property is called as a entropy, and this is denoted by S. So the definition of property entropy is simple way is integration of dq by t, that is nothing but the change in entropy. So it is not defined in the word, but it is defined in terms of mathematical expression. So entropy's definition is not in terms of words, but it is terms of the mathematical expression, and that expression we can write as integration of dq by t. This term is called as change in entropy. So if you take the differential format of that, then it is dq by t is nothing but the ds. So if you take differential form of entropy change, then ds is nothing but dq by t over the reversible process. So that is important. Reversible processes is important word, because we are considering the reversible cycle, and then only that is true. So if you consider the reversible process, then and then only the ds is equal to dq by t. So this is what the definition of entropy that we have got. The unit of this is kilojoules per Kelvin or kilojoules per degree centigrade. We can have, and you can use this derivation for finding out the change in entropy. So if you want to find out the change in entropy for particular process 1 to 2, then you have to integrate it, and you will get the relation from integration of dq by t over the 1 to 2 process, over the 1 to 2 process for reversible conditions. So this is what the change in entropies condition you can find out. So you can remember this very important formula. हा फॉर्म्युला लक्षात ठेवा. कुठल्याही हालतीमध्ये ज्या ज्या वेळेस तुम्हाला एंट्रोपी चेंज विचारलं जाईल, त्यामुळे त्या वेळेस तुम्ही हा फॉर्म्युला वापरून यू कॅन डिराइव्ह एनी रिलेशन अँड यू कॅन यूज इट. सो दिस इज बेटर वे टू रिमेंबर द एंट्रोपी चेंज एज dq by t. Okay. Now, if you are having the adiabatic process, in case of adiabatic process, the dq is equal to 0, so ds is equal to 0. So you can say that for adiabatic process, entropy remains constant. Change in entropy is 0, means what? Entropy remains constant. So you can say that reversible adiabatic processes are giving you the same entropy line or constant entropy line. म्हणजे whatever we were discussing, that reversible adiabatic processes are not intersecting each other, because those are showing you some property. Now which property they are showing? These lines are showing you the entropy as a property. So those are the entropy lines. So S is equal to constant during that reversible adiabatic process you can consider. So this is what the we can say that definition of entropy. Now based on this definition, we can have the other uh, theorems, that is we have to see. So let us see that. So if you want to find out the heat transfer, then you can use the relation Q is equal to TdS. dq is equal to TdS. And for total heat transfer, you can take the integration of TdS from 1 to 2. So if you are having the process 1 to 2, then you can use the relation TdS. This is again one of the important relation that you can use for solving the problem. Okay. Then next, TS diagram. So when you are having the TS diagram from 1 to 2, then area under that curve is giving you the heat transfer. So this is what you have to remember. The area under PV diagram is giving you the work done. Area under the work PV diagram is giving the work done. Similarly, area under the TS diagram is giving you the heat transfer. Area under the PV diagram is giving you the work done, while area under the TS diagram is giving you the heat transfer. So that you should remember. Okay, now next point. So if you want to plot the Carnot cycle, then that Carnot cycle will be a rectangle here, because reversible adiabatic processes are the constant entropy processes, and those can be a straight line on the TS diagram, because entropy is not changing. Means what? Those are the straight lines. So you should remember, reversible adiabatic processes are the isentropic processes, and if you want to draw the isentropic processes on the TS diagram, then those will be a vertical line. So Carnot cycles on TS diagram will be like this. So see, based on this also, or the for reversible processes also, you can find out the Carnot cycle efficiency, and Carnot cycle efficiency can be written as 1 minus T2 upon T1. See, this efficiency already we have discussed in the last point, that is efficiency of heat engine, we can write 1 minus T2 upon T1. So here Carnot cycle, if you write, then the efficiency of that will be 1 minus T2 upon T1. So this can be understood by the entropy concept also. Now see, there is one relation that is called as a Clausius inequality. So there is a huge proof based on the efficiencies formula and the assumption, or we can say that the Carnot theorem, that is saying reversible engines are giving the more efficiency than any other engine. So based on that, reversible engines are giving you the more efficiency than any other. Based on that, you will get one relation, and that relation is called as the Clausius inequality. So what is that Clausius inequality? Clausius inequality is the dq by t is less than or equal to ds. Clausius inequality says dq by t is less than or equal to ds. And if you integrate it, then you can say that this will be cyclic integration of dq by t is less than or equal to 0. See, don't confuse in that. In this case, there will be definitely confusion, but don't confuse yourself. So ds is nothing but dq by t. But when it is true, it is true for the reversible processes. If you are having the reversible processes, then ds will comes dq by t. Okay. And if you take the cyclic integration of ds, the cyclic integration of ds घेतलं तर that will come 0, because it is a property. So that's why the dq by t, as it is but obvious. If you consider that reversible process, adiabatic process, then dq by t, cyclic integration of dq by t will also comes as 0. But if the process is not reversible, means it is an irreversible process. So in that case, the relation is coming that the dq by t is less than ds. जर प्रोसेस इरिव्हर्सिबल असेल, त्या केसमध्ये dq by t is less than ds. आणि if you take the cyclic integration of that, then cyclic integration dq by t will be less than 0. So this term is called as Clausius inequality. See, this may be used for checking the process is happening or which type of process is there. For that purpose this is used. Okay, so how it is used, let us discuss. Now for example, suppose I am having the Clausius inequality like this, that is cyclic integration of dq by t is less than or equal to 0. Then for reversible processes we are getting this relation, that is integration of dq by t is equal to 0. For irreversible or for possible processes cycles, for irreversible or for possible processes, you can say that it is less than 0. So see, we are having the three types of the cycles. The first is reversible cycle, which is possible, and second is irreversible and possible. So that we can check the process is reversible or irreversible by using this relation. But if that process or that quantity is coming greater than 0, then you should say that this process is not possible. This process is not possible. See, we have discussed in the limitations of the first law. First law is not telling that which process is possible and which process is not possible. Now you got the check for that, that if the cyclic integration of dq by t is coming greater than 0, then you have to say that this cycle is not possible, that is impossible. So you can use this for the ds also. So see, these relations are important that you should remember. For any process dq by t is less than or equal to ds. So definition of entropy is ds is nothing but, for reversible process is dq by t. This is for reversible process, and for irreversible process ds will comes greater than or equal greater than dq by t. Now we can use this for inverse. So when you are having the inverse, for the inverse means particularly when you consider that the adiabatic process, adiabatic process म्हणजे काय, तर dq is equal to 0. Adiabatic process म्हणजे dq is equal to 0. And if you consider that any isolated system, then in that case the process is adiabatic. Isolated system म्हणजे काय, you see, isolated system you are knowing. Isolated means there is no exchange of heat, there is no exchange of mass. Isolated process म्हणजे there is no any exchange of heat, there is no any exchange of mass. So such type of systems are called as isolated system. And if the systems are isolated, then there is no heat transfer. There is no heat transfer. And if you say that there is no heat transfer, then you can say that the processes happen in that are adiabatic processes. If you say that the processes are having there and which are not having the heat transfer, then we can say that those are the adiabatic processes. So in isolated system we will have the all adiabatic processes. So if you are having the adiabatic processes, then you can say that for isolated system the ds can be considered as greater than or equal to 0, greater than or equal to 0. Now see, if you consider the inverse, inverse means what, it is surrounding plus system, and outside that there is nothing. So from outside the inverse, nothing is coming in and nothing is going out. इनव्हर्सच्या बाहेरून काय आत येत नाही आणि आतून काय बाहेर जात नाही, म्हणजे काय, that is nothing but an isolated system. We can say that inverse is an isolated system. And if you say that isolated system, inverse is an isolated system, then you can write for the inverse as the ds, that is entropy change of an inverse, is greater than or equal to 0. Inverse entropy change will be greater than or equal to 0. Now this term is important for checking that process is happening in the inverse or not. It is possible in the inverse or not. So for that purpose this relation is important. So when you are having the reversible process in inverse, then that ds will come 0, and if it is coming greater than 0, then that process is a irreversible process. That process will comes as a irreversible process. But if the ds is coming less than 0, if the ds is coming less than 0, then in that case you should say that the process is not possible, the process is not possible. And in this case you can see that the entropy of the inverse is always increasing because something is happen that will be a irreversible process, due to which the entropy of the inverse is increasing. That's why it is called as a increasing entropy principle. See, entropy is nothing but it is not a quantity, just like a energy. See, energy you can feel, so don't relate it with the energy. Entropy is a term which is defined mathematically for our convenience. So it is not just like a energy which we can physically measure or physically see. So this is what the entropy concept. Now we have to understand how the entropy change is taking place. So for example, if you are having the temperature difference of 500 and 300, then you will find that the entropy of A is reducing while entropy of B is increasing. Entropy of B is increasing. And entropy of A reducing is by 2, while entropy of B is increasing by 3.3. Entropy of B is increasing 3.3, while reducing for A is 2. So change in inverse entropy, that will be always positive, and it will be 1.1. So in this case it is coming 1.1. Why it is so? Because the process is occurring from the A to B. So this is what we can say, that the entropy is increasing. And if you say that the inverse entropy is increasing, then it means this process is possible. This process is possible. But now if you reduce the temperature difference, जर आपण हा टेम्परेचर डिफरन्स कमी केला, म्हणजे काय केलं की वी आर हॅव्हिंग the A at 500 degree centigrade, B at 499.99 Kelvin, and same amount of the heat is transferred. Then in that case, if you measure the entropy change of A, it will be same, minus 2 kilojoule per Kelvin, while for B it is 2.0004. So entropy change of in this case is 0.004. So what is the conclusion from here? In first case, the temperature difference is more, means what? There is a inequilibrium, means what? The reversibility is less. The process is more irreversible. But in case of second case, the process is approaching towards the reversible process. Process is approaching towards the reversible process. So when you say that the entropy change is more, it means that the process is happen more irreversibly. While if say you say that the entropy change is less, then you can say that the process is approaching towards the reversible conditions, which is the ideal conditions. So this is what we can have a measure, that process is approaching towards the ideal conditions or it is going away from the ideal conditions. Now, as we are knowing that reversible processes are giving you the more efficiency or maximum efficiency. So for our case, reversible processes are the ideal processes. For our case, reversible processes are the ideal processes. So we want reversible process. So we want there should be minimum change in entropy. There should be minimum change in entropy. So that is conclusion from here that you can get. Okay. Now, if you consider the another way, that the process heat is transferred from B to A. Now, if you transfer the heat from B to A, now you are knowing that it is impossible, but let us discuss in terms of the entropy. So if you find the entropy in this case, the entropy change of A is coming 2, entropy change of B is coming minus 3.3, and total entropy change will comes negative. So in this case, the entropy change is coming negative. So you can definitely say that this type of process is not possible. So here you can conclude from here that uh, the entropies values, change in entropies values will indicate you or will gives you that the process is possible or not. That is first thing. Second is it is also giving you that how much ideal, see how much you are away from the ideal conditions. If you are near to the ideal conditions, means if you are having the reversible processes, then the entropy change is less. But if the entropy change is more, then you can say that you are much away from the ideal conditions. Your irreversibility is more. So this is what the use of entropy concept. Now, so here you can conclude that from outcome from the second law of thermodynamics, that is no heat engine have 100% efficiency. Maximum efficiency can be achieved with the reversible heat engines, and entropy increases in irreversible processes and remains constant in reversible processes. So this is the what that you will get. Now, fourth point, you can write more the entropy change, more the deviation from the ideal conditions. Then as the entropy increases, useful energy reduces and disorder increases. So this is what the conclusion from this lecture, or you can say that the entropy concept, that entropy is a measure of disorder. Entropy is a measure of disorder. Okay, so now I think you have got this. There is one more concept I think that we have should discuss. So problems I will not take it right now. You can see it afterwards. But one more concept is there that you should remember, that is regarding the availability. So see, entropy is what? It is a measure of disorder. So measure of disorder means you are going away from the ideal conditions if the entropy change is more. If it is zero, then you will say that it is ideal conditions. But if you are away from that and it is coming zero, then it means that you are going away from that. Okay, so there are two types of the entropies you can have. The entropy change due to the external heat interactions, just like whatever we have seen right now. And there is one more factor that you will be there, that is entropy change due to the internal irreversibility. Internal irreversibility means friction is there. So in that case, heat may not be exchanged, but it is produced inside there. So that is called as the internal energy, sorry, entropy generation. So entropy generation, increasing entropy due to internal irreversibility is called as a entropy generation or entropy production. So this is what the concept that you should remember. Okay, so today we have to stop here. Probably next lecture, some other faculty will take the next part regarding the properties and all these things. Today we have to stop here, and uh, we will stop here. So one thing that you should give the feedback of this session. I'm going to post it the that link in the chat box. So if you are having the difficulties, doubts, please let me know so that I can explain it. Okay, so I am going to share the PPTs also. So I will share it on our WhatsApp group. Okay, for today's lecture. So give the attendance through this Google link. Okay, so we'll stop here now.